Hey everybody, it's the Warlock Phosphoros. I'm back again and better than ever, and today I want to talk to you about magic and how it relates to our revolutionary struggle. I am a big advocate of magic. I believe that not only does it have the power to change our lives, change ourselves, change our entire conception of reality, but on a collective level has the potential to change our world and our society in positive, productive, revolutionary ways. And that's what I want to talk to you here today about. I want to talk about 10 reasons, 10 ways that magic and the study of the occult and mysticism can be instrumental into our revolutionary struggle. This is by no means a comprehensive list, and I'm going to cover a lot of ground really quickly, so there's a lot more I could dive into on each of these individual points. And I hope to continue expanding on this topic frequently, and not only just giving information and laying out my argument, but actually giving you tools and skills that you can take with you and import into your own practice, both in your personal spiritual practice and with your revolutionary work. Without further ado, let's get started. Starting in what may be a familiar area for many of you, I want to talk about the tarot and astrology and how these practices can enhance our understanding of our own situation, of our situation as a culture, as a people, and as a civilization, and how that can put us into context in terms of these symbols that we can understand and then relate back to. So by anyone who has legitimately studied and worked with the tarot and astrology will tell you that it's not only a way to explore your subconscious, but actually can be very helpful in situations and point out aspects that you might not be aware of, or even if you were aware of, it puts them in terms that they then become usable, they become understandable, and they become mutable. So anything that's going on in your life, any sort of situation, we can look to the stars and we can look to the cards as well as other divination methods and begin to understand it on a deeper level. And by this understanding, this allows us a possibility for action. Now, it's obvious to see how this can be applied to our revolutionary politics by not only by expanding the scope of our inquiry from our own situation to our revolutionary movement, to our struggle, and to our collective situation. We can then come up with more coherent and well-informed strategies. Smoke is blowing in my face. We can come up with better strategies to deal with it. So, I mean, I don't think it would be unwise to consult the tarot before any major political action, or if you're planning an event, look at the astrological situation before you do that. It's believed in a lot of circles that Reagan had something of a court astrologer based on a lot of the dates that he planned certain things that he did in his administration, and it's no surprise that, like, for what he was trying to do, all those things worked out pretty much the way that they anticipated. So it's not a be-all, end-all, and we don't want to be dogmatic about this, but by setting ourselves up with favorable conditions and looking more into our situation, we can gain greater traction, we can be more effective in our work, and we can plot the way forward with the most knowledge and understanding possible. Number 2, by working with magic and the occult and meditation in any form of mysticism, we do vital work on ourselves that improves our own capacity to do work, to live as healthy, well-rounded human beings, and ultimately just improve our total effectiveness in terms of revolutionary change. You talk to anybody with a regular meditation practice, and they will tell you that when they meditate frequently, they are more lucid, they make better decisions, They have more clarity of mind, and just everything about their lives improves. And I firmly believe that, you know, healthy people who have greater clarity, greater peace of mind in a ways, people who take the time and do this work are better equipped to do this revolutionary work. You can't actually, you know, make a positive change. You can't achieve anything if you are still divided within yourself, if you continue to work against yourself. So by rooting out these patterns, rooting out these pernicious subconscious instincts, by beginning to understand our own internal landscape, we can be much more effectively affect the outside world. And that's what we're trying to do. You know, we need to be as effective as possible because we're up against a whole lot. Number 3 is that the occult gives us a deeper understanding of both our subconscious experience and aspects of our reality that are outside of any kind of rational or logical understanding. There are domains of science that can be perfectly explained, well, you know, explained to the best of our knowledge, whether it's biology or chemistry or physics, or in the case of Marxism, the progress and the material structure of history. By doing these kinds of sciences that are within the purview of our some sort of objective material reality, it allows us to better understand the world. But it's pretty easy to see that that does not fully encompass our experience and even the entirety of our shared or mutual reality. We all experience dreams. We all experience these slips in consciousness. There are things that happen that we cannot understand, and myths and magic are real. And magic is real, by the way. And even these systems of science are meant to be methods to elucidate the truth, not the whole truth in themselves. Now, magic and the occult is a dialectical study of an experimental model of subjective experience. It's relating our experiences to these models that we understand as models, but we also understand have a reality and like a realness all to themselves. And by understanding these models, that gives us a more holistic picture of reality that we can relate back to these models of science, to these models of historical materialism, and understand them on a greater level. Dialectics understands things as processes, that no thing is a complete and ideal object unto itself, but gets its meaning from these parts of these systems and these processes that it interacts with. And a good Marxist, as a Marxist and a dialectician, I believe that historical material reality is one way of understanding a larger system that we only can begin to wrap our heads around, because the scale and scope of reality is so massive that it's overwhelming. Aldous Huxley in the Doors of Perception talks about our brain as instead of just as a window to reality, as a filter. We have to pair to narrow things down based on a set of cultural and biological programs or imperatives and categorize it into our experience. And by doing that, we're leaving out so much. And by, taking entheogens or psychedelics or engaging in an occult or meditative practice, you open that filter and you get other ways of seeing and perceiving things, which allows you to be more creative and flexible and have a deeper understanding than you would before. Now, this is important for our organizing work, because it allows us to gain new insight into situations, to come up with creative solutions, not just to be bound by what has been happened and demonstrate in the past, but like Mao talks about on practice, you go out there and you participate in the struggle and you do the work, and that's where the understanding comes from. The only way that people can write about this before is by doing that work, and you're gaining some of that practical understanding through reading. But the way that this new understanding is uncovered is by the actual participation in practice thereof. So by diversifying our sphere of practice. That's where we gain new insight. That's where we gain new understanding. And these are some of the things that I believe are going to take our struggle from the level where it's been to the levels where it's never gone before, but it needs to go in order to stop climate change, defeat capitalism and fascism, and change our world for the better and build the world that we want to live in. So Aleister Crowley, the great beast 666 of all people, one of the most famous definitions of magic is the one that he gave, which magic is the art and science of causing change in reality in conformity with will. Which, in a real sense, with our political work, that's what we're trying to do too. We're trying to manifest changes in our political system, in the way that we relate to each other, and in our economic system. So by actually being able to understand how you can change reality with will is such a fundamental part of our revolution. Absolutely. And not only does this practice gain us kind of a strategic viewpoint, which I think is so important and is one of the many things that I think is really one of the strengths of Marxism-Leninism and historical materialism and dialectics, is it gives us the strategic viewpoint in which we are able to engage with to achieve this change that we're trying to achieve. Any kind of change you want, the way to do that is through magic, and by studying magic, you have greater capacity to achieve that kind of change you want. And there's so many ways to do that, and a big way to do it is by interfacing with the subconscious mind by using ritual, sigils, dance, color, music, and intense focus and concentration to program our subconscious mind to relay a message to the universe or whatever you want, or your gods and goddesses and divine powers, to then deliver that result unto us. Now, this has a couple aspects to it. Is even if you take a more secular sort of psychological viewpoint to it, which I would say is a good thing to a way to introduce people to the concept. But I think if you stop there, you're missing out on a lot. If you reduce it, you're actually stripping away a lot of what makes it powerful. But even if you just take that approach, right? Focusing on what you want to achieve, the emotional state of achieving it, and organizing your thoughts and your efforts behind that is just fundamental strategy of how to get something. It's just a good way to go about achieving what you want to achieve. So even if you're a total atheist and skeptic and you don't believe in this, it is still a good way to organize your thoughts, your efforts, and your aesthetic and emotional experience to prime you to do the work that you want to do. Now, if you go a little bit deeper, you understand that the universe does respond to our state, our thoughts, our intentions, our will, our subconscious disposition. And it will, if you program into it with sigils, which is just a pictorial representation of your desire. If you talk to witches and occultists, wizards and warlocks that have used sigils, they will tell you that they work. They absolutely work. I've used them before, and they do work. You have to do them correctly. You really have to actually put the time and effort in and charge them correctly and follow the whole procedure, but they do work. And so by actually engaging in this, we are able to achieve what we want to achieve, find new ways to go about achieving what we want to achieve, direct our efforts to it, and find new avenues to achieve what we're trying to achieve that are outside the scope of what we would normally define as possible. So it opens roads to things that we would not often think are even achievable, but allows us to do it in new directions and new avenues based totally on what we desire, what we decide that we want, and how we go about it. Now, to many people, to many of our enemies, to the fascists and many of the capitalists, magic is not a secret. They've known about it for a long time. You can think of corporate logos as a form of sigils that implant in our consciousness, and every time you see it, every time you look at it, every time you think about it, it charges it, it gives it energy, it gives it attraction, it embodies in a pictorial form the energy and the life force of that brand and of that corporation. And so we're surrounded by these magical entities and egregores that dominate our world. Fascists have been using magic for a really long time, and some of them are very organized and have been working at this for a while and don't think that those results aren't manifesting everywhere around us. It's really terrifying, but in order to respond to these tactics, which even if you're a skeptic, affect people on a subconscious level and thus are instrumental in the turning wheels of history, because they are, in like a Marxist framework, they affect the superstructure, which then goes back and affects the base. So by understanding how these tactics, these methods, and these systems are affecting people and are affecting the world, and by understanding these mechanisms, we can more effectively counteract them and instead achieve what we want to achieve and achieve this revolutionary change. Is not going to be easy. I think that, there's been a lot of people working at this for a long time, but I do think that we have some ground to make up, especially because a lot of people have just been shut off to this for a long time, and as a movement, we need to understand the dynamics and currents of these forces so that we can respond to them appropriately. As we enter more of kind of like a postmodern sort of, they talk about it being in a post-truth world, and we kind of leave this modern age of, secularism and capitalism. Our consensus reality, the shared collective experience of what we define as real and what's in the parameters of real, we can already see that starting to decay. And so these kind of forces and these kind of practices and this type of phenomena is going to become ever and ever more important to our fight. And we need to be ready for that. We need to be ready for a magical war. And it's already happening, and if we are not able to rise up to the challenge, that just leaves ever more room for our enemies to exploit, gain more power, which is absolutely not what we want. And it looks like this one's going to be a two-parter. Wow, I could ramble if you let me. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you stay tuned for part 2, because that's going to be coming out very soon here. If you enjoyed the video, you can show us support by liking and subscribing. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. And if you feel so inclined, you can show us some financial support on Patreon. This has been the Warlock Phosphoros, wishing you all the best, much power, and peace. I will see you very soon. Take care.